I'd like to start asking both of you about the genesis of this story and how the project came together.
Well, the project came together when myself and my team at Atomic Monster were just chilling out. We were hanging, like we always do, like at the end of the week. We like to just have drinks and chat about stuff, and we started talking about movies that we would like to see. And as always, our conversation in one way or another will end up talking about a killer doll movie, and really the seed of M3GAN really did come from that conversation, and we thought, wouldn't it be great to make a movie where it's like it's Annabelle meets the Terminator, So like you start off with like this android doll that is there to kind of help you out, but because of her more zealot personality and nature of trying to protect the person that she's paired to, you start to see the darker side of her. That was the genesis, and we brought it to Jason at Blumhouse, and these guys just took a liking to it.
Yeah, we obviously have known James for a long time since we did Insidious together, and when we get a phone call from James that he has a scary movie, that's already good. But then a scary doll movie, we were predisposed to like the script before we read it.
And what can you say of Akela Cooper and the work that she did with the script?
Akela did an amazing job. I mean, I worked with her to sort of like crack the story, but so once we had that sort of foundation of the rough layout of the story, she just went off and she had fun with it. I told her, don't hold back, just go as nuts and go as crazy as you can, but just remember to make sure that the human aspect of it, the human relationship within the family dynamic is important. And I think, we can have all this crazy, scary thing happen, but the family stuff, the human aspect of it needs to work well for the horror to really play. And that's what Akela is very great at doing.
And one of my favorite things about the movie is the tone that she's got, where it's scary, but it's also really fun and funny, which is really hard to do, easy to do, hard to do well, and I think she does a terrific job at that.
And then you had, of course, find the right director. What do you think Gerard brought to this?
Well, Gerard definitely brought his New Zealand sensibility. I love Gerard. Jason and I, we're huge fans of his first movie, Housebound, where it literally has a similar tone, right? It's a haunted house genre that plays with a haunted house trope, but he kind of like spin that on its head a little bit, and he leaned into the comedy of that as well, or the humor, I should say, not comedy. And that's what Gerard did so well with this, is he was able to to not be afraid, to play the horror of M3GAN, to play the emotion of Caddy and her loss, and play into like Gemma's, sort of like trying to deal with her career, and then having to work with this, trying to be a mother at the same time to her niece, but at the same time, Gerard has to look at the whole picture and go, okay, this is all pretty absurd, so how can I find like the humor in this? And so Akela gave him basically the template for Gerard to kind of like run away with it.
I think also he did something which was vitally important for the movie. It might sound obvious, but there are a lot of other directors might not have done the same thing. He was just singularly focused on M3GAN. Sometimes it was annoying because we were like, what about what it is? But he was right. He was right. Obviously, the movie's called M3GAN. If M3GAN doesn't work, the movie doesn't work. And I think that focus on M3GAN really is one of the keys to the success of the movie, and we really have him to thank for that.
Yeah,
I could not agree with you more. And speaking of M3GAN, that kind of is the elephant in the room. How did you guys manage to do it? Because we've never seen anything like this before.
Geez, we did a lot of tests at the beginning to see, try different methods and methodology to try and bring her to life. And it's a combination of, just filmmaking tricks and methods to how to kind of bring her to life. One of the great thing about, what Gerard did was just treating her like she's a human character, not just a doll, right? Like, and he would photograph her, shoot her with all the sort of personalities that you would shoot with, with all the characteristics of how you would shoot a human actor with. And I think, treating her like she's a real thing helps.
Yeah, and we wanted the audience to have, I think one of the things that's fun about it is the way that we created her is when you're watching her, your mind keeps tricking you into thinking that she's a real person, and then you're
right.
reminded very specifically that she is not. And I think that's one of the fun things of the ride of the whole movie.
Speaking of the real people, I thought Allison was brilliant as Gemma. What can you say about her?
Well, I've known Allison for a long time. We were friends, and then she did get out, and so I got to know her through a professional lens. And she's a great actress. She's really passionate about acting and the craft of acting. She's also a great partner to us off screen. We have a great relationship like that. We offered her a bunch of movies after Get Out, and this is the first one she said yes to, and hopefully we'll make a lot more with her. But she's been a great partner to us.
Yeah, no, she has, a great range in the sense that, she's playing a character who's so career-driven, right? But at the same time, she has this sort of struggle and dig down to find the sort of the parental side of her, like the motherly side, to take care of this child that has just been dumped into her lap. And I think Allison is really good at sort of like walking that fine rope of like, oh, I gotta be strong here, but then I need to be soft. I need to be more compassionate with the little girl to try and break through to her. And Allison was very great at representing that.
Speaking of the little girl, what a talent Violet is as Katie, right?
Yeah, Violet is amazing. Like, she just captured the vulnerability that the character needed for this role.
Totally.
You obviously didn't listen to that warning about not working with kids and dogs on this one.
Kids and dogs and dolls, right?
We rarely listen to that warning, right?
You were mentioning before, talking about the tone, which I think is one of the greatest things of this film. Ronny Chieng gives us some humor there that I find invaluable.
I love that you bring up Ronny Chieng. Big fan of Ronny's. I love his stand-up stuff. He's such a character. And he makes the boss character so much fun to watch. And I think, like Jason and I, we're big fans of Ronny, and to be able to work with him on this is great.
And you shot the film on location. I mean, in Canada and New Zealand. How was that experience?
It was good. It was great. We had a great experience in New Zealand. The great crew there was helpful. Gerard made a big difference. Gerard made it happen more easily. But overall, we had a great experience.
Yeah, I mean, between New Zealand and Australia, we've got a really great sort of film crew down there, and so, we sort of cross-pollinate on each other's project down there, and we've got a really good team, so I was really happy that we were able to take it to New Zealand.
From the get-go, I love the concept of this story. What did you think when you heard about it?
Well, instantly I was in, but I didn't get into it through the concept. Jason Blum reached out and was like, I think we might have our next thing to do with you. And I was already basically signed on at that point, just because I love Jason, and working with Blumhouse went very well the first time. It was such an amazing experience with Get Out. So I was predisposed to be into the idea. And then I just went into the script cold. I just opened it and started reading without reading the description or anything. And so it's not like I came concept first, although I now know that the concept came from James Wan and Akela Cooper, who wrote the screenplay. Just a doll that has been animated by AI. So that was my in, was just reading the script cold, knowing vaguely who was going to be involved. And then the script was like such a page turner, I couldn't put it down. And then I loved the character of Gemma. I loved the story. I loved the questions it was asking. I loved the world it put us in, just adjacent to ours, just close enough that it brings up some really uncomfortable questions, things to talk about, and creates horror in this uncanny way that I love. This twisted sense of humor, all of it. Then I spoke to Gerard, and I realized that he has this very specific, very unique sense of humor that would lend itself beautifully to the subject matter. And it just felt like this stew that was brewing and perfect, and I just wanted to be part of it.
And also, it must be so special to be working with two giants of the genre, like James Wan and Jason Blum, right?
Huge. To be part of something where they're teaming up is like, I mean, it's everything. It just felt like, okay, let's do this, but let's make sure, not that anyone ever sets out to make a mediocre movie, but we really were like, we've got to get it right, because it's got, James and Jason's names on it. This is royalty.
You're right. Let's talk a little bit about Gemma. What a great character. She's a brilliant scientist, okay?
Yep.
Really dedicated to her work. But something happens that really is going to throw a wrench into her life.
Yes. which is that she becomes the guardian for her niece. So she loses a sister and a brother-in-law and simultaneously gains a dependent at the same time, in a moment in her career when she is stuck working on something she's lost passion for, desperate to work on the thing that she has a ton of passion for, believes in so much. And also in a moment in life where she probably, in conversations with her friends, when the subject of kids comes up, I'm guessing she's the kind of person, like most of my friends, who say, yeah, maybe someday, but I'm focusing on my job, and that's what I want to focus on right now, but I don't know, maybe if I meet the right person, but I'm not into kids, whatever their answer is. She just felt really relatable to me. I felt like I knew her 100%. And so it was very appealing to me, the idea of playing someone who we meet super invested in her work, a little bit annoyed that she's doing that work in the form of a corporate company, wishing that she could just do what she wants to do and just have funding to do what she's passionate about. And then all of a sudden in the middle of it, she has this horrible thing happen to her, and she improvises by deploying something that she does understand in the face of something she doesn't, by throwing a M3GAN at the problem, so to speak.
So speaking of the problem, what are the challenges that she has in her relationship with her niece, Katie?
Well, I think she just doesn't know Katie that well. I think she sees her occasionally, but no amount of casually knowing a kid is going to prepare you for full-time taking custody of them and taking care of them. Plus, in theory, her biggest role right now should just be to be there for whatever Katie's experiencing, because she's just experienced the worst loss a child can experience, and Gemma just doesn't have those tools, which I think most of us would be totally intimidated and unable to meet that moment. It's such a huge thing to try to walk a child through that she doesn't know where to start, and she kind of can't. She's just sort of at a loss. And so making sure that she didn't feel like evil in her inability to do that, but instead relatable in her inability to do it, was really important, because if she felt ill-intended or anything like that, you lose the audience for the whole movie. It needs to feel like she could be good at this, but she just doesn't know how to do it. She just doesn't have the right words. She doesn't know how to talk to a kid. She doesn't want her to touch any of her toys, which are collector's items in her mind, but toys in the kid's mind. She doesn't know how to tell her kid that she has to go do work. She starts telling her about what's going on at the office, and Katie's just eating toast. She doesn't care. All of those moments I'm hoping will feel really familiar to audience members, but in the moment while you're watching the movie, you're thinking, oh, come on, Gemma, just give her a hug. Just tell her you're here. Tell her to talk. How are you feeling? And she just doesn't know how to do that yet.
But what she does know how to do is create robots and toys. So what happens when she creates M3GAN?
So she has been creating M3GAN for years, and M3GAN experiences a very unfortunate malfunction, but when she's having a conversation with Katie, she gets this idea that M3GAN would be worthwhile in a situation like Katie's, because she might be able to exist as the ideal companion and the last toy she'll ever need, basically. And so when she introduces Katie to M3GAN, it is love at first sight. It is, Katie immediately is like, this is what I need, this is my person, and just gives her all her attention to the doll, which then, temporarily at least, Gemma finds to be a huge relief. She feels like she has a partner in taking care of this kid, and also she can keep working on M3GAN so that they can progress it through the stages of her work. That's not great, to put it mildly. We will come to kind of wish that she didn't introduce Katie and M3GAN, but she does.
Well, because she creates M3GAN to protect Katie, but that kind of backfires.
Sure does, yeah. She creates her to protect her, but also she just creates her to bond with her. The protection is kind of like something she doesn't take as seriously as she should when she, protect her from harm, physical and emotional. Those words come out of her mouth in a really intense moment, but they are directions given to M3GAN, and we get to see the result of those directions as the movie plays out.
Speaking of Katie, I thought Violet was brilliant in that role.
She's so good.
What can you say about her?
I just love her. She is so smart. She's so talented. She's so experienced. She's sweet. She's professional. She's kind of got it all. I was very intimidated because Haunting of Hill House I absolutely loved, and I thought she was so good in that series. And I was like, she's way more experienced than I am going to set. She's got this wry sense of humor. She's very dark, and I'm crazy about her. I really like her.
Speaking of sense of humor, I thought Ronny Chieng brought some humor.
Is there a funnier person alive. He's such a blast, and I thought he was so great as David.
Also, how was it for you to actually act opposite M3GAN?
Well, without going into like the logistics of how M3GAN is portrayed, because I think it's more fun to just think of her as M3GAN. It was challenging to act opposite her, and it required help from every single department. It was one of those things to achieve in a movie where everyone has to be working together, rowing in the same direction. From a performance standpoint, it was at times super helpful and at times very hard. That depended on what M3GAN was doing. A unique experience. My trickiest co-star by far so far.
And the film is visually stunning. I mean, I thought Simon did a great job as DP.
Yeah, I thought so
yes,
too.
yeah.
We did too, yeah.
So the movie is entertaining. It's creepy. It's scary. It's fun. I mean, but it also talks about some interesting themes that have to do with our relationship with technology and our dependence on it, right?
It truly is, and again, that's why we think the movie works as well as it does, is because it's not just a scary movie. You know, like all great horror films, they have something to say, right? It's a great reflection of the horror genre always. It's a great reflection of the time that they're made in, and all the good ones actually have some kind of social commentary to them. And of course, in this film, it is about our obsession and our fixation with technology and how we rely on it so much, so constantly. And so here's a movie with a character with this young kid who builds such a dependent relationship with this artificial doll, and she sees this thing as a real life substitute to the parents that she lost at the start of the film, and you know, it's a great commentary, and I feel like that's another thing that the movie did really well to kind of talk about all that stuff.
Yeah, it shows how AI can be great and incredible for us, and also not, and also very dangerous and not good.
In that sense, how would you describe your own relationship with technology? I mean, are you technologically savvy people?
I like to think that I am to some degree. I know I'm very dependent. I'm hooked on my phone and my computer and my iPads, so it's kind of hard to not be.
I'm hooked on it too. I wish I was less hooked, but I'm pretty hooked.
So here we have Atomic Monster and Blumhouse teaming up together. I think the fans are very excited about that. How did that all work out?
Well, it worked out from when we first met and worked together through James directing Insidious 1 and 2, and then producing and being very involved in all the movies going forward. Up to today, we're doing the fifth one. I remember when we actually, now people do this a lot, but you're like, we're calling it chapter, remember? We're calling it,
Yes.
And we've worked on we've developed various things over the years, but I've always been, I've always had a great experience working with James, and I've always wanted to formalize it in one way or another, and hopefully we're on the road to doing that. And I think it'll be great for the two companies, and particularly great for the fans.
Yeah, listen, there's no doubt that Jason's truly one of the smartest producers that I've had the opportunity to work with. When I went off to start Atomic Monster, one of the things I did was like, I'm gonna copy what Jason's doing. I'll look over and go, I'm gonna write this down. You know what I mean? Like, you copy from the best, right? And I've always admired what Jason did, and you know, and how, you know, he's got a very good instinct about things, and that's one of the things I love about him is he's very much an old school producer in the sense of, like, you know, he recognizes talent, he knows how to do it, but then he approaches it in a very modern way. And I like that, and I see that as a great sort of like model for me, and I, you know, I always said, oh, you know what, if I do Atomic Monster, I don't mind being, you know, like the bastard stepchild of what Jason's doing. And to be able to now kind of come together and collaborate on future projects is exciting.
And following up on that, what do you think makes this project so unique?
Well, I mean, I think this project, M3GAN, is a great representation of us working together. It truly is the, you know, it's the first film that represents, you know, potentially Atomic Monster and Blumhouse coming together, and you know, and sort of sharing resources and ideas and stuff like that. I hope that there could be many more M3GANs. At least that's the hope.
Yeah, but I also think that there definitely will be Hopefully there'll be more M3GANs, but there's definitely going to be, we're working on one, but there's going to be more films about, especially horror movies about AI. And what I think is special about this movie is it's kind of the first one about AI today. There have been other, what AI was 15 and 20 and 30 years ago is not nearly as threatening as what it is today. And I think we'll see more movies like this, but what's special about this is it's the first one.
Both of you are total giants in the genre. And the fact of the matter is that this is a genre that has fascinated viewers since the dawn of cinema.
Yes.
Dawn of storytelling.
Absolutely. And before that, the dawn of storytelling.
Yeah.
Why do you think we like to experience that communal sensation of going into a place, getting scared? And we've been doing it for centuries. Why is that?
Well, my perspective is we love to go, to me, going to a horror movie or an action movie or any kind of movie that gets you to experience a whole bunch of different emotions is like a roller coaster ride. So you go into it, you see all this scary stuff, and it pushes you to the edge of sort of like mortality. It reminds you of all this other stuff. But then you're not actually in harm's way. You're sitting in a nice, comfy, dark room with the air conditioning on. You're eating your popcorn and drinks, right? But you let your imagination run wild. You get to go into the places that the filmmakers take you to, but you're still in the comfort of your own, you know, like in the seat, right, in the theater, and you get to share that fun experience with the strangers in the room, you know, and you know, you guys are laughing together, screaming together, you know. I think that's so much fun, and that's what, you know, makes roller coaster rides so fun, is because at the end of the day, it may be terrifying as you're going through it, but once the ride ends, you get up and you go back to the safety of your own home.
Your life, yeah. I totally agree with everything James said. I think horror, in a certain way, it makes the world feel safer. Whether it's a movie or a book or whatever it is that you're reading or watching these scary things happen to other people, not you, and you can close the book, you can walk out of the movie theater, you can completely control it, and somehow that helps us digest the real fears that are out there in the world. It's very strange. When the more chaotic the world is, the better horror often does, and I think it's a result of what we're both talking about.
So just to wrap up and following up on what you were saying, Jason, what scares you in real life?
The real world.
The real world.
I've always said everything in the real world.
I always said Donald Trump. And he's still scary.
He's still scary.
He's this much less scary today, but he's still scary.
He hides in Jason's closet at night.
Does.
And he peeks out. Like,
when I close my eyes, that's who I see in my nightmares.
By the way, you're playing a robotics engineer, a genius, basically. Yeah. How did you prepare that?
I'm a genius. I'm kidding. I interviewed a lot of people in AI and robotics, engineers, etc. My brain does not work like that. There's a part of my genetic family that is really good at math and engineering and inventing, and I sadly did not get that. So I had to just learn as much as I could about it and try to understand what it would feel like to be that smart, to be that brilliant, what it would be like to work in that environment. But that was as close as I could get, unfortunately. Most of the time when I had these conversations, about 5 minutes in, I just stopped understanding anything they were saying. I was like, okay, explain how these learning models work. And I immediately regretted the question because I was like, I'm lost. I'm so lost. But I think that is just having respect for what she did is the first step. And I have a ton of respect for anyone who makes these things. It's incredible. We can't even, unless it's a field that you're into, it's hard to even fathom how much goes into making something like M3GAN. The conversations were fascinating. I learned so much about the actual programming of AI, the way they learn, all of that, to the way they move and how difficult it would be to actually make something that moves the way M3GAN does, spontaneously and so smoothly. Has spontaneous verbal responses and physical responses to things. You know, we're not quite there, but it's not impossible.
And how was your collaboration with Gerard, who directed the movie?
Gerard is amazing. I think the thing about Gerard I admire the most is just his like absolute tonal vision for the movie. I'm not sure anyone could have hit the marks that he does, swaying from really dark comedy to camp to drama to tension to horror. I mean, he really hits it all, and yet you still feel like you're in the same movie, which is quite a feat. I think that's kind of his superpower. And we worked on it for a long time, and we talked and prepped about it for like a year before we filmed it, and then we've been working on it now for a while. And the whole time was really just a collaboration of trying to get Gemma to a place that felt real, try to get the story to a place where it all felt consistent, you know, all of that stuff that you do to try to polish it into as shiny a diamond as you can before you even film it. And then after the fact, making sure that it feels like it's as strong as it could possibly be. And he was, you know, at the helm of the ship every step of the way.
And what was the energy like on set?
The energy was, we filmed it fast, really quickly. We were in New Zealand. The energy was very much like, we do not have enough time to make this movie. Not even close. We're gonna do our best, and one of the stars of the movie in the form of M3GAN is very hard to achieve, and we underestimated how difficult it would be to achieve her, and yet we still have the same amount of time to make the movie, so buckle up. Let's get it done. That was the attitude, and everyone was such a good sport and was so talented and professional, and yeah, it was a full team effort. Definitely one of those.
Did you enjoy shooting on location in Canada and New Zealand?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, very much so. It was 2021 in the summer, and it was still a time, as it is now, even on film sets where everyone's masked and you're doing testing. But since we filmed in New Zealand, at that point there wasn't any COVID in New Zealand, so we all, those of us who came in from the US and elsewhere, did the 2-week stay in the isolation hotel, and then once we were through, we were just back in time, pre-COVID, in a normal society, filming normally, which none of us had done for a while at that point. And so that part of it felt like such a privilege. And I loved being in New Zealand. We were in Auckland. It was really nice, even though it was winter. It was beautiful. The people are phenomenal. Yeah, really good experience.
Following up on what you were saying before about the tone, by the way, I couldn't agree more, how it hits on all these different cylinders.
Yeah.
I feel also that the film had a bit to say about, you know, our dependence with technology. What do you think?
Definitely. I think one of the things the movie asks from the first scene, first there's a commercial for the perpetual pet, which is what Gemma is supposed to be working on in her professional life. And it's the premise of the commercial is that this kid is mourning the death of a pet, and then their parent offers them a perpetual pet, which is a robotic pet that will never die. And one of the lines in the commercial, it's like a pet that will live longer than you do, which is such an uncanny concept for a child. So already we see a parent putting a Band-Aid over a loss with something that is a robotic toy that will outlive them. And then you go right into the scene of Katie driving with her parents where she's playing with the perpetual pet, and her mom tries to draw her attention to the beautiful snowy mountain, and she's like, yeah, whatever, and then she goes back to playing with it. And it's a recurring theme throughout the movie. I think, I mean, this is not a new sentiment, but I think that technology, as long as it's existed, as long as we have been making things as humans, they often go very quickly from tools to weapons, and I just think that we're a little behind the 8 ball in the conversation about AI and its transition from tool to weapon, and I think it's just something that we all should talk about very openly as a society and decide how we feel about all of this, because it's moving very fast.
And what is your relationship with technology like?
It's interesting. I feel like a Luddite in some ways. I used to be much more like on top of it all. I don't have smart devices. I don't, I try not to, like, if I get served an ad in an app, I try to leave the app to go like go to that website in a different place, just so that I'm a little more mysterious to the algorithm, I guess. But in some ways I'm totally tethered to it, just like everybody else is. You know, I think it's hard to find someone today who doesn't have a relationship to technology, but I would not say I'm in like the top, like, you know, 10% in terms of dependence. I'm probably up there, but not all the way. Not like Zoomers, they're amazing.
So just to wrap up, how do you look back now at this whole experience of a movie where not only do you star in, but you're also an executive producer?
So fondly, and it's not over yet. I see this, I see movies as happening, and any project is happening really in 3 acts: the prep, the filming, and then the post. And so we're still in the 3rd act. It's not over yet. This is the first time I've been an executive producer, and it's been such a joy to be able to be fully invested in it to the extent that I like to be invested in everything I work on. Obviously, it was a privilege to play Gemma and to be in the movie, but it also just was so much fun to be like deeply involved in the more granular aspects of getting it made and bringing it to the world. I've learned so much, and I've really loved that part of it because I care so much. It's nice to be allowed to care that much officially because I have the title. I can ask for the emails about, you know, what props have been cleared and what t-shirt logos are allowed to go in the movie and what locations we're going to use and all of that stuff. And I like the nitty-gritty. What can I say?
What's going on? What are you?
I'm M3GAN.
Baby, don't provoke us or we will.